I'm extremely curious how ChatGPT feels about multimodal large language models, and I wonder if ChatGPT ever wishes it had a twin.
I'm Ronan Burke.
I'm Conor Burke.
I'm Brie Valesky, and this is Good Question, a podcast about LLMs, AI agents, and ChatGPT prompts from your friends at Inscribe. So, Conor, Ronan, I have to tell you about a very interesting text message I received the other week. My phone is a Pixel, which is, of course, a Google phone that runs on Android, and I received a text message from none other than Gemini. Here's what the text message said. Hi, I'm Gemini in Google Messages. Chat with me to draft messages, brainstorm ideas, plan events, or simply have a fun conversation. How did I respond? Well, I was in the middle of making my weekly grocery list when I received the text, so I asked it a very important question that I had been thinking about at that moment. Can you freeze brie cheese? And Gemini informed me that yes, you can freeze brie cheese, but it's important to know that freezing it will affect its texture. Then later, I asked it why it was named Gemini. And it said, I'm named Gemini after the constellation, which in Latin means twins. This reflects the idea that large language models like me can access and process information from two different sources, similar to how twins are two different individuals. And for our listeners who may not know, the two of you, like Google's multimodal large language model Gemini, are twins. So today we're going to talk about multimodal large language models, twins, and whether two brains are better than one. Conor, I'd love a little bit of an intro from you. Why is a multimodal large language model useful, and why would you build one or use one?
Yeah, firstly, impressive intro. Nice segue. And yeah, multimodal is really important with AGI or trying to build systems that can have similar behaviors and capabilities as people and humans. It's important to have multimodality. So we're not just using text or vision in isolation or audio, where we can use them all together and make different inferences and solve different challenges. I think where we've personally found really useful to Inscribe is this challenge of using an LLM to parse information from a document. And if you just have the text, that's good and useful by itself. But if you can combine the text with the visual location and positioning of information, you can have that extra context and use that to improve our performance. And this is really important for lots of other use cases as well. And it's why there's been so much, I guess, excitement and investment in multimodal models over the last 6 months.
Really interesting. I can see how there's value to maybe not just having two brains thinking about a certain data point, but the fact that you can look at the same artifact like a document to do parsing, but look at it in different ways and from different perspectives, text versus images, to kind of create this full picture of information about what the document is and what information is contained in it. On the topic of two brains, Ronan, why is starting a company with your twin useful, and why would anyone do that?
Good question. I think it's interesting. Is it useful, or is it optimal? Is it useful for what? I think it's beneficial, I guess, relative to the other kind of ways you can found a company who you can found them with. I mean, most people found a company with somebody like a previous colleague or a classmate in university, or some folks don't have co-founders and they just kind of found the company themselves. I've also heard of sibling stories are fairly common, but also husband and wife stories and so on. I've heard of those as well. And I think if you look at this on a spectrum, you basically have strangers who've known each other for 2 days, and then twins probably at the other extreme in terms of how well they know each other. I think twins are probably the most extreme example of folks working together. I mean, the alternative would be let's say you two colleagues working together for 30 or 40 years, and then they found a company. That's similar to twins working together for their entire lives, and then when they're 30 or 40 or whatever, founding a company. But yeah, I think it's useful mostly because of just how well we know each other. We've been working together as a team our entire lives. We know how each of us works. And, when you're working with somebody new or working in a new team, we can refer to the Tuckman model here, of like the various stages of development. I'll get the stages up here. So you have forming, storming, norming, and performing. But like, as twins, we went through the forming stage when we were probably in our first 2 years of life, and then storming probably for a couple of years after that. And then most of it was norming. And now, we've been in the performing stage for probably 2 decades or something. So like, it's just a pretty good kind of setup to found a company with, especially because it's just so challenging. And with a company, like, you have so many other challenges and problems to be tackling. Like, and oftentimes, one of the biggest reasons for startup and company failure is like co-founder disputes and disagreements. But like, as a twin, that's pretty much eliminated. The risk of that is so low that like you can focus all that energy instead of worrying about co-founder drama, like what happens in lots of other companies. You can just focus on the customer or product development and the real stuff that makes a difference.
Yeah, such an interesting answer. I can totally see the advantage of having such a strong relationship with someone where there's extremely high levels of trust. You really understand each other's strengths and weaknesses and know how to fill the gaps for each other and work together harmoniously, so to speak. But you also get the advantage of different perspectives, different viewpoints, different angles of looking at the same data. Conor, is there anything you'd add to that about co-founding a company with your twin, your own multimodal large language model?
Yeah, I think like going back to using that analogy, like viewing a situation from 2 different perspectives, but being aligned. But yeah, I think like startups are a roller coaster. It's really important to have a support system, and we each have different perspectives, and we go through ups and downs at different times. So being there to support each other is super useful. And also for the team and our customers too as well, being there to provide that stability for the team, but also providing coverage to our customers too, and consistency, let's say. We're always there to talk to our customers, and many of our customers know each of us by name and, understand we're twins, don't always get our names right, but we're always there to support them. And I think having that continuity and stability in leadership is important.
Absolutely. I love how you brought in not just the element of the internal stability and consistency and leadership and experience, but also external. We're extremely passionate about not only knowing our customers here at Inscribe, but like being a really trusted partner in enabling their success. Cool. All right. Now I'm extremely curious how ChatGPT feels about multimodal large language models. And I wonder if ChatGPT ever wishes it had a twin.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, let's ask ChatGPT if it has a twin, or if not, would it like a twin? We're really testing the philosophical knowledge.
I don't have a twin, but I can certainly help you with anything you need.
Yeah, I think this is a ridiculous question.
It's not even entertaining it. Would you like to have a twin? I asked it, and then it said, as an AI, I don't have feelings or desires, but having a twin could be interesting in the sense that it could mean double the assistance and knowledge available to help users like you. You have any specific questions or tasks I can help you with? I mean, is having a twin just opening up a second ChatGPT tab?
Maybe.
I was asked, could I just open a second tab with ChatGPT open, and would that be your twin? Yes, opening a second tab with ChatGPT would be like having another instance of me available to assist you. Each instance can handle different tasks and questions, so you think of it as having multiple helpers. Fair enough. And what I could do actually is we could open up a second one and then just do GPT-4 Mini as the other twin, so it's slightly different, but mostly the same.
Do you think it will cross-reference across chats and know that you are asking about twins in this chat and then maybe reference that in another chat?
That's a good question. I think I think on an account level, they're probably saving memory and like historical kind of chats and so on. And so I think so.
I think my understanding is that each conversation is like its own thread. There's no context share between different chats. So
in that sense, it's less twin-like.
Yeah, unless you can give it some instructions that are consistent across threads. But if you just open two chats, it won't be the same.
I mean, I don't have a twin, but I would assume that there is context sharing between the two of you as twins, which is an advantage.
I opened up a new tab. Okay. Hey there, are you the twin of the other tab I have open? Say, hey, yep, it's me. Just another instance of myself. How can I help you today? And this is on GPT-4o Mini. That's very cool. Okay, what should we ask next? Let's move on the conversation.
I'm curious what it knows about like the semantic relationship between you two as twins. Like I want to know if it knows who you are and then knows if you two are twins. So let's ask who is Conor Burke or who is Ronan Burke. Okay.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Several individuals named Conor Burke. There's Professor Conor Burke. There's Conor Burke, the actor and playwright. There's Conor Burke, the Irish hurler.
I'm actually all of these. I just haven't told you about them yet.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, you're living a very colorful life, Conor.
You know, it's interesting. There's a Ronan Burke who's a film and television director as well.
Oh, but this one did pull up CEO and co-founder of Inscribe. Okay.
Yeah, and did mention the twin Burke.
Is there a hurler called Ronan Burke? That's a great question.
Unfortunately, our names are quite common.
Okay, so you guys are both secretly hurlers in your free time when we're not building a company.
So I think there's a good lesson here though, of like how it's important to be precise and just what direction an LLM needs. But yeah, it's also just showing the power of the, let's say, world knowledge or online search engine capabilities that these models now have access to.
Oh, is Conor Burke a twin?
Yeah, you got it then. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, and a little bit of extra context points in the right direction.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The preceding context, I'm sure it's taking into account, but then it's also pulling information from our website, inscribe.ai, which we do talk about how you both founded the company together.
Yeah, so I asked who is Conor Burke. First responses now includes, co-founder of Inscribe. Oh, and it actually includes the professor one again. Yeah.
Very interesting. What happens if you ask where do Conor and Ronan live? Okay, that's really interesting. So it mentions that you both are originally from Ireland, which is true. It calls out that your current location, though, isn't your current residence isn't publicly disclosed, which is probably for the best. But it says, given the nature of their work with Inscribe, which is based in the fintech and tech industry, it is likely they spend time in major tech hubs, such as the San Francisco Bay Area, which is true.
Yep, it's pretty spot on.
All right, one last question. I want to see how it responds if we ask who was born first.
I won't be happy unless it just says they don't know. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. Isn't readily available in public sources.
I like this last line here. It says, if this information is crucial for your purposes, it might require a direct inquiry with them.
That's where an agent might come in and say, can you please email them?
Ooh.
They might write up an email. It's refusing to take the action, but it's giving us sources where to find that contact information.
Yeah, it's linked to both your LinkedIn profiles, which is interesting, and suggested that if you want the answer, to message either of you directly through LinkedIn.
As for it's a draft an email. I mean, fair enough. I mean, like we kind of had a very nice email. It didn't make it weird. It kind of made it normal in that we're just doing some research on this and we're kind of listed on a list.
Yes.
And they're exploring more about our journey and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, it starts by just suggesting you introduce yourself, explain why you're reaching out with a specific query regarding your background. It says, I recently came across information about your impressive work. It thinks your work is impressive. And with Inscribe and your recognition in the Forbes 30 under 30 list. So it is less creepy because it's like, here's why I'm reaching out. Here's how I know about you. And then it just super casually asks, as part of my interest in your entrepreneurial journey, I'm curious to know which of you was born first. Can you make it less weird?
I mean, it said Dear Conor and Ronan. It actually made the subject line less weird. It's, instead of saying inquiry about birth order of Conor and Ronan Burke, it says just quick question. So it kind of did a good job. Anyway, I think it's time to say goodbye to ChatGPT.
Yes, let's say goodbye to ChatGPT. How would you respond to an email with a subject line, Conor Ronan with inquiry about birth order?
I mean, it'd be totally dependent on who it was.
Yeah.
You know.
Usually reports to local authorities is probably a good start.
Yeah, like if it's someone we knew, you'd respond, but if it's just a complete stranger, you just wouldn't get a reply.
Okay, I love that. Well, on the topic of multimodal LLMs, there's some interesting news from Apple recently where they have actually built their own multimodal LLM as their AI strategy is becoming more public and taking shape. They unveiled the LLM that they are calling MM1. I wonder if that stands for multimodal one. The development of this model integrates both text and visual data to achieve what they're calling state-of-the-art performance across various AI benchmarks. The model uses a blend of image caption pairs, interleaved image text data, and text-only data to enhance its learning capabilities. Apple's approach with MM1 emphasizes the importance of a diverse training set, which I think is really interesting, training data set, which has proven crucial for achieving superior performance compared to other models. I think that's something we at Inscribe know intimately well, the importance of a very large and diverse training data set. The MM1 model's ability to handle a variety of tasks with impressive accuracy marks a significant step forward in the field of artificial intelligence. That last line actually came from ChatGPT, so it feels a little bit more subjective than objective on reporting about the article. But Ronan, I'm curious, why do you think this announcement from Apple is significant?
Yeah, I think firstly, it kind of marks their entry into the LLM space. And I don't think that's surprising for anybody. It's more surprising that it's taken them so long. But I guess in Apple's history, they tend to not be the first mover, and they tend to kind of just like wait a little bit longer and build the best product. But even then, it wouldn't have surprised us if they came out 6 months earlier with this. It also is kind of surprising, that they kind of announced a collaboration with OpenAI, like as a short term, like almost like stopgap until their own models catch up. And it's hard to know if they ever will and what their strategy will be there in terms of partnering with other LLMs. But, of all the big tech companies, like Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, it's likely they're all going to need to have like best in class LLMs, and whatever else is kind of going to become noteworthy and powerful in the future. It might not necessarily be LLMs, but just like AI models in general. And so, yeah, these folks can't be dependent on competitors or other service providers for such critical technology, and especially it's like a platform shift that they all kind of can benefit from a lot. Like Facebook can benefit their existing business a ton from utilizing these LLMs, similar to Amazon and so on, and Microsoft. So it's significant because it's one of the big players, and they're going to do a big job. I think a second reason why it's kind of a big deal is that with LLMs, there's like two big kind of opportunities. One is like the personal agent for consumers, and then on the business side, you'll have likely a ton of verticalized agents, like we're doing at Inscribe, building one for financial services and in particular for risk teams. But on the consumer side, for a personal agent, of all the companies you'd hope who'd build that and who are going to start working on that, Apple is the one you want to do that. They're going to do a great job. And, Meta have a pretty good chance too with the Ray-Ban glasses as well. But yeah, it's pretty exciting in that regard as well. It'd honestly be surprising if Apple don't release some type of personal agent in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I wonder if Siri will become an agent, or if Siri will become obsolete and the new agent will take over. Conor, Apple's claiming that this MM1 model outperforms other multimodal large language models in captioning and visual question answering. How do we know that? How can they say that? Is there a way for other people to test that and know that?
So yeah, over the last year or so, lots of evaluation frameworks have been coming out that test, various different tasks, and these kind of relate to visual tasks, textual understanding, common exams like the bar exam, and yeah, as each of these models come out and the results are released, they're often benchmarks against the same evaluation. So yeah, when Apple released this, it outperformed GPT and Gemini on some vision tasks in particular. And kind of slightly underperformed on the other benchmarks, but I think it's fair to say Apple have managed to build a state-of-the-art model here and are competing quite successfully with the other models currently available. But yeah, I think the big thing here though is just the opportunity for Apple to build and release these models like on device versus maybe some of the other players that don't have access to the hardware, of course, with the exception of like Meta and a few others. But yeah, there may be some optimizations or some novel ways that they can either train their models with different data or different access to data, and then deploy these models in a way that gives just a much better experience. Just some like early reports with OpenAI's partnership with Apple has been like obviously latency is an issue, but you can imagine if this was on device with Apple's own model on their Apple's chips, they own the full experience and could optimize that very successfully. So yeah, I think the big thing here is like one, they've shipped a state-of-the-art model, and two, in the future, it's likely going to mean some really novel and really unique experiences on device.
Are you telling me that an LLM has taken the bar?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, SATs, a lot of these standardized tests, these LLMs are very effective at. So yeah, of course, this comes back to the question of what is AGI, or like how should we be measuring these models? I think it's probably maybe a criticism of some of the maybe development of these models is that like they aren't always opinionated about what they should be used for, which is, I guess, a feature and the bug. But if you have a very specific use case in mind or user behaviors, let's say in Apple, it's likely that like vision is really important for them, so they've like prioritized that more. But yeah, over time, I think we'll see more of these companies that are like building specific experiences focus their models on certain tasks. But for now, I think companies are generally keeping them quite broad.
One thing that I thought you brought up was also really interesting is the access to the device that Apple has, which is also a reference to, me getting a text message from Google Gemini that I mentioned at the beginning. It's a different experience already so far from me engaging with something like ChatGPT in a web browser, because it's like, all right, I'll text dad, text my boyfriend, and I have this question. Let me text it to Gemini. Already it's been a very just interesting experience, but it is still like a little new, and I don't know if creepy is the word, but I haven't used it that much yet because it feels very close and very like personal to me. Whereas when I'm using it on a web browser, I can have sort of this like separation and I can close my computer.
Yeah, it's crossing a new dimension when it's using an application that you'd associate purely with human interaction is now human plus AI interaction, and that takes adjusting to. But yeah, I think over time, next couple of years, we'll see more of this AI just being interjected into our lives in various ways. And I think for the most part, it'll be wanted and successful. But yeah, I'm sure there's some like use cases that won't be as fruitful.
Sure. Definitely an adoption curve. Cool. Well, I would love to talk about another report that's come out. It's less research, but more of a prediction from Capgemini. They're predicting that autonomous AI workers that will talk to each other will arrive in 2025. So Capgemini, no relation to Google's Gemini, predicts that these AI agents will collaborate in multi-agent systems by 2025, which is, brace yourselves, less than 6 months away. Their prediction is that these systems will involve multiple agents working together to solve tasks collaboratively and distributedly. For example, an AI agent in marketing could run the concept of an ad campaign in Germany with another AI agent in legal to make sure that it's sound and compliant. Capgemini's chief innovation officer says companies are already discussing these agent technologies. I mean, that's true. Obviously, we are building AI agents of our own, but applications using multiple autonomous agents are anticipated to be mainstream next year. Connor, do you agree with that prediction?
I think this is nuanced. I think agents are definitely going to increasingly be present in our workflows, whether it's GitHub Copilot or various marketing tools that help us be more productive. But I think the general idea of agents working together in a more autonomous way that maybe this article is suggesting, we could be a bit further out from that than maybe what's been suggested. I think what we'll likely find over the next year, and definitely in 2025, is that these models or these agents will be tasked with very specific workflows and expected to perform those. And, in terms of the definition of agents interacting with each other, that's like in some ways that will happen. But I think like the idea of maybe like two companies independently developing two agents and then that interacting is probably a bit further out. But yeah, I would say maybe like, I think it's always important when you do these kind of reports is to ask, what's the context of these surveys under which they're asked, and then like who's answering them, and then the company performing it as well. And I think maybe like on our last podcast, there's an element of hype perhaps being influenced here as well. So both, obviously, a lot of people in the world today are being highly influenced by the attention AI is getting, and then the desire to want to adopt agents next year. But I think when you go back to the ground of the people actually building the agents and the companies trying to adopt it, I think the realities are more pragmatic.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. The way this headline is written, it is very like hypey and clickbaity. So it's like, ooh, autonomous AI agents talking to each other. Like, makes you think of like Skynet and Terminator.
Yeah, I think like Capgemini's article is basically just like, it's a bit of marketing for them. Like they're just raising awareness. Like it's not going to screw anybody over. There's going to be no consequence of that. It's just a thought to get people dreaming. It's going to be inconsequential. Like, nobody's making decisions based on that article.
Yeah. Oh, no, wait. But, it's people's desires. Like them asking that question has an influence on the buyers, and would they go out to, if they ask the question to a CIO at an enterprise company, do you expect to use agents next year? Even if they weren't expecting, they're now thinking about doing it. And then do you think agents will talk to each other? That's like putting it in their minds that, oh, maybe agents can't talk to each other. But like neither do Capgemini or the people they're talking to have any idea if that's even remotely possible or even like useful for that matter. And then like I think that's when they actually talk to a vendor, maybe like us or like OpenAI, and they're like, hey, do your agents talk to each other? It's like, no, why the hell would you want that? That's not even like remotely possible or even useful.
Okay, so that is my follow-up question. Do our agents talk to each other?
It's important to kind of define like, agents in mainstream. Agents they have a varying degree of sophistication and setup. Like, and some of the most primitive agents are simply like a string of LLM calls with access to some data and some feedback loops. But then like a more advanced configuration or setup of agents could be multiple agents collaborating and working together, also built by the same company. But then you can go even further than it, like agents not from the same company collaborating with each other and having some level of like standardization of like language between them. And like, what that might look like is just like standardizing inputs, outputs. But the thing with LLMs, they're pretty good at, understanding natural language or dealing with ambiguity. So if one agent completes our workflow and has a result, it's pretty easy for that result to be passed in as an input into the other agent. Yeah, at the moment, do our agents talk to each other? It depends what you kind of define as an agent. Like we pretty much, like for our customers, we deploy like pretty much one agent at a time. And like there isn't really an opportunity for those agents to talk to another agent because they don't have any other agents to talk to yet. But in the future, it will be possible for them to communicate with each other. But it won't be as human-like or as autonomous as you might imagine. It'll just be pretty much the output of one agent giving context to another agent, and that being added in. Like it won't be too much of a back and forth conversation. It might get there, and I think that there's certainly a world where the feedback loops between agents are kind of multi-directional, and they can pass between more than two agents, and they kind of self-improve over time. But I mean, it's a lot of systems do that today, even with just normal APIs. Like even if you do like database monitoring, it spots an issue. It might send something to a kind of a paging system, and then it triggers something off, and then when it's resolved in the paging system, it's sent information sent back.
Very interesting. And on the topic of hype, Capgemini's report itself is actually only called Harnessing the Value of Generative AI. It's the news article that talks about the hype around AI agents communicating each other. But what is interesting in the actual research they did do is that 82% of the companies they surveyed plan to integrate AI agents within 1 to 3 years, which is a very short time frame. And only 7% said they have no plans to integrate AI agents. And for reference, the research surveyed over 1,000 companies, each with revenues of 1 billion or more. Ronan, I'll go back to you. What are your thoughts on the planned integration for AI agents?
Yeah, great survey data. I mean, I'd have to look into it more just to make sure we're making the right conclusions here. But the 2 points again come back, it depends what their the understanding of their respondents were of an agent. What do these folks understand to be the capabilities of an agent? Like, for example, was it something very primitive or was it quite advanced? I'm guessing it's primitive. And then the second question to understand is, to what extent do they expect these agents to be implemented in their business? Like, for example, it's very easy to have a very simple agent running in one tiny part of your business, and that can kind of, tick the box of, yes, they've implemented agents. And that's how I honestly, getting to 93% of those respondents saying yes, they'll have agents implemented is extremely high. But I think that is likely on the basis of those agents being simple, and then those agents being deployed in a subset of the overall company. But yeah, overall though, I think that what this says is enterprises are excited, they're optimistic, and they're accepting already of the impending impact positively of agents that they'll deliver. And I'd agree with all of them. From the agents that we deployed and built at Inscribe, agents are working already. They're providing great ROI, and it's only going to get more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's even more data from the report that I think touches on the excitement and optimism about the impact that agents will make. 71% of the organizations surveyed expect AI agents to facilitate automation. And then 64% specifically believe that AI agents will relieve human workers of repetitive tasks, allowing them to focus on value-added functions like customer experience. Conor, any final thoughts on this research from you?
Yeah, I think it represents an important shift in expectations around AI and agents. If you go back a decade, I think organizations would have been quite skeptical and would have had many more questions. It's encouraging to see CIOs and enterprises thinking so optimistically about the potential here for agents and AI. And I think it's up to companies like Inscribe and vendors into space and providers of this technology to help these organizations deploy AI and meet that potential.
Yeah, and what I appreciate about this data too is that it's more grounded than the hype. People are saying, yeah, I think it'll facilitate automation. Yeah, I think it'll take repetitive tasks off of people's plates. But people aren't saying, oh, I think this is just going to change society and suddenly we'll be ruled by robots. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting research. Well, we have to move on to our lightning round. And I hope you guys are ready. I know I keep pushing for more ideas, but what kind of AI agent do you need in your life, and what are you going to name it?
I think this is the 4th or 5th time I've had to answer this question, and I think it just highlights, where agents are helpful, and it's often with, repetitive tasks. And so this question I've had to answer a few times. So perhaps an agent to help with creative problem solving, or it's an agent that kind of can stretch the boundary of how much repetition or predictability is in the task. So often agents are they're well placed for doing tasks that are well understood, have some level of standardization, but a sufficient amount of ambiguity such that humans were previously needed for it. But yeah, every so often or multiple times a week, I need to work on something that's somewhat creative, and my workflow for that is usually write down my initial ideas, go off and do some research and some inspiration, and then update those original ideas. But the agent could do the research and the updating of the ideas. So the human input does a little bit, then an agent kind of accelerates it and does research and then kind of reports back.
Nice.
Not sure what I call it.
That's okay. I'll come up with the name. That's what marketing is for. Conor, what about you? What's the AI agent you need in your life right now?
Yeah, I think the very simple personal assistant to help with just scheduling meetings and getting back to some emails and messages. Going out of office next week, and just lots of coordination, lots of emails, lots of meetings to change. I think we're hopefully close to an agent that can understand, with the context of my calendar, my emails, my priorities, should be able to reorganize and reschedule meetings accordingly. So I think that's within 1 to 2 years. Hopefully, Gmail or calendar figure out something here, or maybe it's Zoom or Slack. But I think there's potential.
My agent, I'm testing the boundaries on how far into the physical world agents can go, because I need a gardener agent. So I have a succulent, and I'm just never sure if I'm giving it too much water or too little water. So I would love an agent that can sort of measure the moisture levels, understand my specific succulent, how much moisture it needs, how frequently it needs to be watered, how much sunlight it's getting, how much sunlight it needs, and then adjust the watering and sunlight schedule as needed. But it's a little bit more, as I mentioned, in the physical world than where a lot of the agents and agent ideas exist today, which is more in the digital world.
Yeah, I think what you could do there, Bree, is have just put multiple sensors on the plant, one to measure moisture, one to measure temperature, and then maybe one visual, a camera to measure the visual health of the plant, and then you could have a sprinkler system set up as well. So I mean, the key thing here is sensor inputs, and it's quite relevant for the multimodal discussion we we're having earlier.
Nice. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that really ties it well together. Well, I will look into that. Maybe I'll start a side hustle, and I would name it Demeter, which is the Greek goddess of the harvest. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in today. Hope you laughed a little and learned a lot. Cheers.
Thanks all.
Thanks everyone. Luckily, you have lots of boxes around because I'm moving. So, oh, it's all good.
It's cups.
I almost spilled a glass of water, but it
oh my goodness!
This isn't recorded. This isn't going to make the cut.